Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Estate and Succession Mastery. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, great, thanks. And today our topic is the process to get maximum estate efficiency. So we're going to talk about. I thought what we'd talk about today, Michelle, is basically the 9-step process we use, and there's a huge part of that which you and Tom are involved in as well. And so I just want to go through for people that are watching, how we can help them get through from one end to the other of the estate and succession planning process. And so you okay with that today?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. One of the things I find with estate and succession planning, and people who are watching might be thinking, procrastination is a really big part of what happens with the whole process, and people sort of get lost and they don't start anything because it's such a big issue. And sometimes it's sort of so big that people just sit there and say, bugger, I don't know where to start, so they don't do anything. And what I've tried to do is to break it down into 9 bite-sized chunks as part of the process that we do, and inside each of those 9 steps very much is a way that we can get into great detail with people, but they're delegating it to us, so they don't actually have to do too much. That's our job, is to help them do it. But look, today I just want to really start by introducing you, Michelle. This is the first one where estate and succession mastery that you're doing with us, and I'm excited to have you on board. And so let's hear a bit about you. You've got a really interesting background in regard to where you've come to from a legal point of view, and I know certainly with where you are there at Gillen Lane, certainly you're the leading estate and succession planning person there, and we're looking forward to lots of wisdom from you over the years. So do you want to just give us a bit of a background of yourself? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Michelle Tesch, and I currently work at a little practice in Sandgate, north of Brisbane, which focuses mainly on estate planning and estate administration. Originally, about 20 years ago, my first job out of school was with a family lawyer, which just so happens to be down the road from where I'm working now. And out of that, I fell into conveyancing and then moved on to work mostly doing conveyancing throughout my working life. Swore I would never become a solicitor, and then decided one day that I think I should become a solicitor. So did that, worked in property law initially because that's where my passion was at the time, personally and professionally. And then Murdoch Lawyers, Tom, came along and swept me up, said I could come and run the practice at Gillen Lane and get partly involved in estate planning, but mostly doing my property law work. And that was 4 years ago now. And now I pretty much only do estate planning work. The property law has all gone. And I'm
Somebody else does that?
Yes, they do. Yes. Good. So I really enjoy the estate planning. I get fulfillment out of it that I never got in property law. It's I didn't think I could talk to people all day, every day, but I do that now, and they trust me with all of their stories. It's a wonderful thing, and I love doing it.
Yeah. Well, of course, we first met through the work that I'm doing with a lot of the work we do with Tom, and of course now you and Tom are the ones that are always turning up at the meetings and so on, and you're the smart one out of the two of you, obviously, that does all the work in the background. That's why you're doing this today. So, but no, obviously, there's a lot of work you're doing now in the succession planning area, and it's been really beneficial and so on for our clients, but also, Michelle, the sort of people that we work with are very interesting, challenging, they're very high net worth people, and I think you've learned a lot pretty quickly from your days in doing conveyancing and so on, and now you've really got your teeth into estate and succession planning, and we really value your your input. So it's great to have you on board, and I look forward to future sessions of these as we dig a bit deeper into how people can get their estate and succession planning done. So and you're a surfer, of course, so that
There's my surfboard behind me, one of them.
Good on you. That's fine. Look, I wanted to start today with people that are watching, rather than just talking about us, which is always interesting, but to give them a bit of a background too. I wanted to talk about the fact that sorry, have you both in here? Both of us in here. I just want to talk about the 9-step process we take clients through, and you're very aware of this, Michelle, but for people that are watching, and I know it's hard to see the numbers in the background there, but we're very specific in regard to the way we go through and help people with their foundations in regard to their estate and succession, helping them put together their master plan for all that. The foundations, then we make sure there's fairness in their plans. That seems to be one of the big issues with families is, they start off thinking they need to be equal with everyone, but I mean, the truth is you just need to be fair with your children, and then obviously looking towards the future. And so there's our 9 steps there. I'm a old-fashioned guy. I like to actually sit down and meet people face to face, look them in the eye, and start with a cuppa and a chat, so to speak. Tea and scones, please, if I'm coming to meet you soon. And then we go through the burning issues. Family harmony is always about just understanding the relationships in the family. Michelle, you understand with these sorts of families, sometimes there's issues in the relationships in the families. People haven't spoken to each other for a while, and so we try and delve into that. And I like to meet with people one-on-one, each of the children and so on, to make sure we can help resolve the issues around relationships within the family. And I find it's better to talk to people one-on-one than it is getting everyone together in a room, and where the loud get heard and the quiet get left behind. So you've probably seen that, have you, Michelle, a few times?
Yes, definitely, all the time.
And then we go across to this is where Michelle, this is where you come in, doing the due diligence report, and we're going to come back, and Michelle's going to I'd like to just give you the opportunity to talk a bit about each of these 3 steps. The fairness area, I guess, is where you guys get involved, going through and helping families with due diligence, putting together a distribution matrix. So we're really focusing in on the fairness and certainty for everyone in the family there. And step 6 up the top there in the middle is what we call protected prosperity. And that's really in regard to asset protection and making sure, you call it bloodline protection, all those sorts of things you could refer to it as, but it's about making sure that any wealth that a family creates is protected for the family, for the bloodline, and doesn't get lost if someone gets, this is your role to talk about this, Michelle, but doesn't get lost if people get sued or have matrimonial breakups and all that sort of stuff. And then just quickly moving on so you understand our process, then we go on and we look at the succession timeline. It's about understanding when people want certain things to happen within their family. Most of the graziers I talk to, they want to die with their boots on, and they want to be there in charge right till the bitter end. And that doesn't always, that's not always a good strategy. So we've got to, talk within the family, and also that, the children coming through need to know what their, what their timeline is. Do they stay? Do they go? Do they do something else, and so on? We put together a master plan which brings it all together: the estate planning, the succession planning, the timeline, and so on. And step 9 is all about what we call peace of mind, which is making sure that each year we help people review this whole process, and we look at updating any information which needs to be updated. But what I'd like to do, if I could, Michelle, is to just go back and have you talk about those 3 steps in the middle there: due diligence, the distribution matrix, and protected prosperity. And that's where you guys really create great value and really come to the fore. So, if we look at the first one, the due diligence, you've just muted yourself there for a second. But yeah, if we talk about due diligence, do you just want to explain what that involves? because this is really you're the one there so doing all the hard work here. So do you want to explain what due diligence is and the benefits for the customers in getting this done?
Yeah, sure. So that's probably, as you say, where we sort of first start our discussions with the clients. So we find out from them, firstly, just a general idea, and also from you, general idea of what sort of assets they have, what structures they have, if they're operating through partnerships, family trusts, companies. And then we gather that information together and sort of look into all of the documents and information around those things, just to cover off on certain topics that aren't necessarily dealt with in things like your will or the traditional sort of estate planning mentality of will and power of attorney. So, so we look
Can I ask you a
into.
question, Michelle? Sorry to butt in, but what are the sort of things that you normally find when you go through this due diligence? What are the things that people might have missed or potentially are ticking time bombs?
Yeah, so quite often, particularly when we're reviewing, say, trust deeds, they're quite old. And this is something that, I mean, the law is pretty quick moving, and trust deeds, when they get really old, they can have things in them that clients aren't even aware of anymore. So we came across one the other day, and I think it was Red Cross was the default beneficiary. So if everybody else had passed away, everything, all of their wealth would have defaulted to Red Cross. Had another one where it was the children's school was the default beneficiary, and their children were grown up adults with their own families. So they were shocked when we pointed that out to them. So these are the sort of things we come across. Yeah.
But I mean, there'd be lots of cases, wouldn't there, of beneficiaries of superannuation funds where the beneficiary status hasn't been either updated or hasn't been established. They don't have binding nominations, for example, or the binding nominations for wrong people. I've found people who have been divorced and they have a binding nomination still to their ex-spouse, and that's usually
we come across that. And even in self-managed funds where they're still in the fund with their ex-spouse, it's so important to have a binding nomination to someone other than that ex-spouse.
Ownership would be another issue, would it, Michelle, in regard to how people own structures, whether they're, a lot of the crazies we deal with have partnerships and haven't, their accountants either haven't talked to them about setting up companies, trusts or whatever. Is that, and that's sometimes where you guys make recommendations, don't you, in regard to, even though you work with the accountant, so ultimately it's always the client's decision, but you will make a comment in regard to whether or not they maybe should look at a trust for asset protection reasons and so on. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems a lot of people, particularly rural farmers, work in partnerships rather than having trust structures. So we talk to them about the benefits of trusts, about how they can protect you. So you can use the trust as your trading entity, trade through that, and keep your personal wealth protected from claims, being sued and things like that. So we present them with all of those sorts of options and suggest structures that could be beneficial to them. And as you say, we talk very closely with accountants as part of this process, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right, a lot of the rural people have started off, and for whatever reason, they all just started off in partnerships, whether that's how it was way back then, or the accountants didn't want to make it too complicated, or the clients didn't want complications. And there seems to be a reaction from certain, accounting firms, isn't there, against having trusts. They sort of think it's a boogeyman or something, and get very stressed and worried about the complication of that. But I mean, at the end of the day, the benefits in a lot of cases really outweigh any extra accounting or whatever that needs to be done, I would assume, from where you guys come.
Yeah, for sure. In most cases, it would be what we suggest.
Yeah. Okay. So in regard to the due diligence report, to me, that's absolute gold, because it's like, it's what I call building on a solid foundation as opposed to building on sand. And if you don't do clients who just go to their solicitor and say, I'll have this, this, and this, and don't do due diligence. I mean, you could be setting up for absolute failure because you might be willing away things that you don't own, that might be in a trust or somebody else has got a share in or whatever. And it's very important to get the due diligence done so that everything that we do after that is built on a really solid foundation, and we can work with confidence then with that family, can't we?
Yeah, and it's not just something for people with loads of different structures and lots of wealth. It's really important for people with anything, even if it's a smaller investigation into what they've got. It's still really important. We've come across things from people who assume they just need a will and have sort of minimal assets, maybe one business they're running. And we've found some things in there that completely change 100% what we do. The will is almost pointless in those cases.
Yeah. No, well said, because and this is why I do what I do, because most people do. They just go to a solicitor or send people to a solicitor and say, hey, can you do this and make it really simple? And you're just building a potential disaster. And that's why I insist with the people I work with, I insist that we use, a very limited number of lawyers around Australia, because they're all people like you who know what our process is, know that we want the due diligence report done. We need an X-ray of their structures and business and how they're all set up in the first place. And if I can't get a lawyer to do that for a client, then it's my reputation, and it's just going to end up in a bloody disaster further down the track. So, okay, so that's the due diligence. Let's just talk through the distribution matrix, because to me this is all about, it's actually a simple spreadsheet in reality. Well, it's not simple, because we need you to do the calculation. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a spreadsheet, but it just sets out potentially what you can leave for each of your children, maybe your spouse, your children, and what that looks like from a fairness point of view between different children, and also, if you've got trusts and so on, how do you leave control of this trust to one or more children, and all the sort of issues that raises, I guess. So let's talk about the distribution matrix from your point of view.
Yeah, so I think it is such a brilliant tool. So we set out in rows what all of the assets are and who owns them, or what structure owns them, and the value of those, and include any sort of net tax total. And then it's got some columns on the side where you can put in your beneficiaries. So for example, your children, and then you can allocate an asset to each child, or even across multiple children. And then it totals at the end what they could expect to receive if mum and dad or whoever passed away last night. And then it just shows you in very simple terms at the end the amount they're likely to receive, the percentage of the total of your estate, that is, how much debt, if any, they're going to be taking on.
Yep.
And then it's also got this section at the bottom where you can, if you're feeling like it's not fair, and this is the thing about fairness, as we say all the time, it doesn't have to be equal. People agonize all the time over not giving their children equal distributions, but that doesn't mean it's fair. Equal is almost never fair. Yep. So the distribution matrix at the end of it sort of has an option to allow for payments to go from, say, one child to another, to sort of balance out their end result. Yeah,
no, it's a fantastic tool, and Tom and I will take all credit for it, of course, but it's a great tool, the distribution matrix. And today we're just sort of going over at a high level in regard to each of these, and we'll go deeper with these, Michelle, in subsequent sessions we're running. But just quickly now, the next step is, once we've created fairness between everyone in the family, asset protection, protected prosperity, as I call it in my step 6, is very much about, putting, different types of wills for different types of families that have different types of needs, but it's all about protecting assets, isn't it? And, the use of testamentary trusts and so on.
Yeah. So, yes, testamentary trusts. Sort of like a trust you set up in your lifetime, as we discussed before in the due diligence section.
Yep.
But it's what you create in your will for the benefit of your beneficiaries, such as your children.
It's not being created today, is it? It's just a clause in the will, effectively, that allows.
That's right. Nothing happens until you've passed away, and if it's decided at that time that's appropriate, that's when it becomes something that can be created.
As you know, Michelle, I've heard the whole process about this many times, but we're sort of a bit short on time today, but we'll save that up for another session, and I'd love you to explain with great enthusiasm the different types of testamentary trust wills, and why the standard will that a lot of lawyers, not many lawyers use testamentary trust for whatever reason I'll never understand, but those that do just use a really basic one, and that's fraught with danger. And we'll talk about those sort of things in more depth next time we talk about asset protection and so on. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Save that for another day. But look, just to finish off today, one of the things that I find is very important, and kind of insist on it with my clients, is that engaging me is not a one-year thing, because stuff changes year by year, doesn't it? Do you want to talk about why it's important to review this all the time?
Yeah, so things expected or unexpected happen all the time, as you say. Injury, buying and selling houses, having children, retiring earlier than you think, children coming in to want to take over the business and you're agreeing to that. Law changes, that's another big thing. The law can change very quickly, and that can throw out everything we've done for you in the past. Not completely, it's still good, but something that is very much good to consider. As you say, annually, just review it. Doesn't mean you have to change it, but just make sure it still works for you. So that's why it's important.
Absolutely, and a good point too. And you're right, some years nothing needs to change. But other years, someone's got married, someone's got divorced, you bought new property, or changed asset ownership, or whatever it is. So it's just a matter of just checking it in every year and making sure you're on track. But they're the 3 steps in the middle of our process that I was talking about before, and they're the part where you guys really come to the fore and create so much value for the clients. And I love working with you guys, and you do such a great job. And Michelle, you and Tom have been fantastic for the people that we've been working with, and thank you. But I want to go deeper with each of those topics in subsequent sessions, and so I look forward to hearing about the different types of wills from you next time. So that'll be good. But look, thanks for coming on today, Michelle. It was great. This is the first one that we're doing together. And look forward to, I know you're excited about doing a lot more of these over time. And you are now. And so what we're going to do is look at different topics each. We're going to get together, Michelle and I, each fortnight, and Michelle and me each fortnight, and I get my grammar right. And we'll bring different topics each week, because there's lots of things that are of great importance to people doing estate and succession planning, and we just want to make sure that you're well informed and you've got confidence in the people that you're dealing with. So Michelle, thanks for joining today. I hope that wasn't too painful today, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks very much for having me, Mark.
Okay, we'll talk soon. See you next time.
See you.